Oh, I actually just started the Aaron Rodgers Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. I kind of stopped watching Joe. He told his listeners to stop like watching him. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna stop watching it then.
Yeah, he had some interesting people on, buddy. You're missing out. Mark Zuckerberg was just on, and now Aaron Rodgers.
I know. I watched the Zuck one from last year, and I was like, oh no, actually, shit. No, I watched.
Last year.
No, it was the Lex Friedman podcast.
I was gonna say he just met Mark Zuckerberg for the first time.
No way, for real?
Yeah, that's his first time meeting him. Is during that before that interview.
You're fibbing.
I'm not. He said at the end of the video when they close out, he goes, "Well, it's really finally nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on, and I appreciate what you're doing for technology and yeah, all this other stuff." So
maybe I'll check it out. I was looking at I was eyeing Meta as like a potential investment, but I don't know. They've got a lot of controversies too.
Yeah, he pretty much said on the podcast that he's hoping that there's going to be a time where people can get like jobs in the meta. Like, so he's going to hopefully be able to like kickstart careers in like the metaverse, which like is like crazy because it's like on top of working from home, you pretty much like you're not working from home, but you're in like a augmented reality aspect of life. But like you're probably like moving or doing something or like I don't know. And I wonder how it's going to be like.
He's so interesting. Like so some of his values align to some of our values. So did he get into like some of his like nonprofit work at all?
No, but he got into how he does jiu-jitsu and surfing, which is like I thought that was pretty cool that he's like getting into that stuff. And like I love how he talked about how like fitness is like really like help him stay successful. And like he was like pretty much saying like I know I'm getting off topic of what you really want to say, Roman, but he said like because he has like so many like things he has to worry about, like it's nice that like martial arts and like lifting is like really good for him because the fact that he like focuses on like the one thing. And like he said he used to be a runner, and then he's like, well, I was running all the time and I would just think about all the stuff that I would have to worry about throughout the day because you're just in that, that's pretty much what I do. Like I'll text Roman and be like, hey, I got like a couple ideas, like what's going on? Like this is what I was thinking about while I was running. And so it was like kind of negatively affecting his like lifestyle and like his stress levels. And he said like that it's really nice because of like he's like when I'm surfing, I can't be like what's going to happen later today because if I do, I'm going to fall in the ocean and it could be bad. I could be injured. Or jiu-jitsu, I could be rolling with some guy and all of a sudden like I'm thinking about stuff and then I might make one false move and get injured. So it kind of correlates to what we talked about last week on the episode, so which is like pretty cool. And I could tell he's not an alien as much as people thought he was. It looks like he's kind of humanish.
No, he's definitely a cyborg, like without a doubt. But I think he still has some like he's like RoboCop pretty much. He's still got some human quality.
What were you saying about the nonprofit stuff? Is that something that you were talking about, or is it something totally different?
No, and it's related. So I don't know if it's like nonprofit as like philanthropic work. I might have stated, but
philanthropic. Okay.
So from what I understand from listening to him on the Lex Friedman podcast, he has a lot of like extremely lengthy and like lofty health goals for like global health goals. So one of the things he wants to be able to do in his lifetime is be able to get the healthcare system, global healthcare systems, so they can either entirely eradicate disease. If they can't do that, be able to effectively treat it and mitigate all diseases, all disease states. That's his goal. Like incredibly lofty, right?
I think his wife is also a doctor too.
Oh, interesting.
On top of it, yeah, she's in the medical field. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and that would make sense. But that aligns like with like many values that like the Gainz podcast has, like in regards to like a healthy lifestyle through like physical culture, right? So we definitely have that in common. I don't have like the chips installed in my brain just yet. And I don't have nanobots that help to like repair different parts of like my body. It's still just cellular machinery.
He actually talked about it. I think because you said like that was a year ago about like Lex Friedman. But he did talk about at the end of the Joe Rogan where they are working on the side on making machines that can pretty much see like the synapse that happen like in your brain, and like pretty much like hands-on technology where you could see what's happening, like if you were like, through like the tissues of your skin. So like if there was like some nerve endings and all this stuff, like they're trying to make technology where they could see it before any operation, like any like type of MRI or X-ray, and they're trying to make something where like you could see inside like what the heck's going on completely, instead of like you have to wait for a couple hours or a couple of days because you have to get an MRI or something like that on your brain, and then all that other stuff. So they supposedly are working on technology on that too, where it's like trying to help healthcare organizations as well. So,
Yeah,
which is pretty damn crazy.
It is. I think what still needs to be like kept at the fore of people's minds, because he's like through his like AI filtered mind and his cyborg like demeanor, he has a pretty infectious personality, right? Like when you listen to a long form podcast about like when he like goes over different things, you can see and feel like his path. Obviously I'm joking. You can see his like about like him being a cyborg, just because like there's like so many internet memes about it, but you can see that he's passionate about these kind of things, and that he has a particular vision for humankind, for like existence, for like people moving forward, that kind of thing. But like what also needs to be like what he needs to continually be pressed upon is Meta is extremely intrusive, and their data privacy is absolute shit. Like they were very cavalier with how they were just like releasing people's data, very very much like Google is too. So it's important that we don't like take his feet away from the fire. I think it's important that we kind of keep like the pressure up, because he's able to create a lot of smoke and mirror, which is very enticing and very intoxicating. But it's important to be able to like see through that as well, and know where like some of the shortcomings and some of like the potential like violations of like our rights are too.
Okay.
Conversation. Yeah, it's tricky. It's really tricky.
Yeah, and I mean, back to like I guess the focus of like fitness and like Gainz podcast. I actually saw a commercial for the first time for like a metaverse, and pretty much like the goal was like kind of like they're kind of trying to like enter the fitness market first, and like games type deal to get people like intrigued. And he talked about it too. He's like, it's probably the best to start off with that, and then like it helps them make a profit to like build up on it. But I saw a commercial pretty much where it's like they want to get to a point where like Peloton has the videos of a live workout, and you pretty much like bike with other people, right? But in the metaverse, you're going to be on that bike, but with like a AR headset, the augmented reality, where you're biking with people like through your like nerve endings, where it feels like you're biking next to someone instead of like a leaderboard and just seeing one person show you how like what they're doing for the workout. So I thought that was pretty crazy, because it's like then you think about like eventually like maybe Olympics or like esports, like because esports is like still blowing up, and like because Roman and I were just we missed the bubble. We're too old, but like when we were kids and teenagers, like we weren't able to be a part of like the esports era because we just missed out because we're just too old. And I wonder if like they're gonna either get into that esports category with like something like that, or like Olympic level stuff, like where it's like, hey, like even if like a pandemic were to happen, we could still hold an Olympics virtually, right? And like the best bikers, or like the Tour de France, where it's like the bikers are at home biking their asses off, and we're somehow virtually there. And it's like someone like my dad, like it's always been a dream of his to watch the Tour de France. Like he was born in France, but he hasn't even seen it in person, and it kind of stinks because like it's just so damn expensive. It's so busy during that time, but like maybe that's an opportunity for someone like him to see something like that, which obviously that's pretty far along probably with the technology, but it just gets my mind going. It's like crazy and how big it could be.
Yeah, no, that's super neat. I kind of took us off into like a
conspiracy theory.
Yeah, a little bit. So my apologies, Gainz Nation. But I think it's a pretty solid segment or segue into the topic of conversation today, don't you?
Yes, sir.
So we're gonna be talking to you about the feet, and in particular the pinky toe. So it was, I forget. This was like a shower thought for me last week, but I forget what I was doing.
You sound like Albert Einstein. He said he had his best ideas in the shower or shaving. It was one of the two. It was either shower or shaving.
That's pretty much the same thing for me. They're actually good ideas, but at least like they're mediocre ideas I come up with. But I think I was doing something along the lines of like a calf raise on the outside of my foot and like intentionally trying to activate like my pinky toe and the flexors of like my pinky toe. And I was thinking like, I don't think I have like the best connection to my feet. Like obviously I can feel my feet and I can like flex my toes and I can plantar flex them as well as like dorsiflex my foot and all this stuff. But like I think I could actually strengthen the flexion, like the plantar flexion of my pinky toe in particular. And it got me thinking about some of the information I've seen from like Squat University, for example, talking about, okay, there have been some like recent studies that have been put out, and there have been some like some different autopsies of individuals, of runners, or not autopsies, biopsies. My apologies.
Autopsies? Doesn't that mean they would probably be dead?
They're dead. I think there has been some autopsies done of different like populations looking at their feet in particular, but specifically I'm talking about biopsies of runners, the bottoms of their feet, and they found like a decent amount of like necrosis, dead tissue, associated like with the flexors, the feet flexors of for the pinky, and it stands to reason that the modern shoe has a very narrow toe box, right? Like let's look at like the dress shoe, like pre-pandemic era, that like many of us were in some ways because of dress code, were like, mandated, pressured, recommended to wear whatever it might be. And that was causing, it appears, our feet to become weaker because they didn't have as much ability to splay. And the pinky toe was kind of the sacrificial lamb in that regard. And it had downstream effects from, I believe that is correlated to knee pain for like people in construction industries, which can like funnel upstream all the way up to like lower back injuries for individuals. You name it, like not having a solid foundation. And I'll give you an example. The next time you're in the gym, go to like a Bosu ball, turn it over, and just try and balance on your tippy toe and go down into a squat. Most likely you won't be able to do it, right? It's because you don't have a solid foundation. So when you take away just like one digit of your feet, you're now creating like all these downstream effects. So like I'm having all these thoughts like flip through my head and like I came to the conclusion like, oh, this is something that we should probably talk to Gainz Nation about, because this is like the type of information that Antoine and I like actively seek and talk about, and to like try out experiments on our own to see if our assumptions are correct or if it will like benefit us. But I don't know if we've directly ever had this type of a conversation like in this platform and shared it with the Gainz Nation community. So what do you think about that, buddy?
Yeah, I think it's all good. Kind of off topic, you said like your splay could be wrong. There's actually a shoe company that someone recommended to me at the gym, called Splay Shoes. They're barefoot shoes, but they're like more like they make kids shoes and adult shoes, and they're like pretty. They look like almost like Vans. Like they're like they have like the Vans material, but it's like minimal sole, zero drop, and they're actually pretty cheap. I actually ordered a pair, and they're like, you could do like their refurbished section, which they sell on eBay, which is like they might have gotten returned or whatever. And I did it, but I actually got sent the wrong shoe size, and it actually surprisingly fits Sam perfectly. So I didn't return them. And Sam, I remember when her parents came in, she walked like all day in them, like probably like 10 to 12 hours, and she loved them. And I know I'm off subject of what Roman was actually talking about, but we're not sponsored by them. But Roman, I probably should tell you that too. But like, if you guys are looking for like a nice like it's not like a dress up shoe. It's more of like a shoe you could go out with, go out to dinner. I wouldn't say it's like they don't have like dressy like leather or pleather shoes. They're just like canvas shoes pretty much. But I would check them out. One of the guys that guy actually I met, he was I think I might have told you outside of the podcast, but he was, what the heck was Blake again? What was his old profession? Sorry, I know I'm name dropping, but
chiropractor.
yes. So he's a chiropractor, and he was wearing Vivo barefoot, and him and I were talking, and he's the one who told me about him, and he has like 2 or 3 kids, and he said, those are the only shoes like I buy my kids. And I thought that was really awesome, because what Roman was saying, I think the good foot foundation kind of gives you like your natural strength to the ground, right? And I think there's some other situations where it could be kind of bad to wear barefoot shoes. Like for an example, like barefoot shoes while running a marathon. I mean, you could do it. And I did up to like what, 12, 13 miles, Roman, with them. And then I realized like it was just very hard on my impact while running. And I really needed a shoe that was going to cover my impact, because every time I got done after a run, my like the top balls of my foot right by my toes would hurt pretty bad, like bone structure wise, right? It's not like a plantar fasciitis pain or like a muscle pain. It was like my bones on my feet were like sore. So I did, as I mentioned a little bit, I did buy a pair of Hokas for long distance running. I don't wear like the Hokas like all the time. I still walk in my barefoots. I still work out in my barefoots. I would never suggest to work out in running shoes, which Roman and I probably are going to talk about too on this. But I bought the wide versions of the Hokas, because my feet now, since I wear pretty much like almost throughout the whole day, is pretty much barefoot shoes or no shoes. And then I'll wear like Crocs, which Crocs are pretty much like almost zero drop too. They have like a little piece of rubber, but they're pretty actually wide. I never really realized it, but wearing barefoot shoes and then wearing Crocs, like Crocs are pretty damn wide for like regular shoe size. But back to the point where like the Hokas, I had to get a wide toe base because of the fact that like I was experiencing like major blisters. My feet, like after, like Roman was saying, like after you acknowledge like the power of your toes, when I was running with like regular size like running shoes before I switched to the wides, I realized I wasn't able to spread my toes and like get enough power off the like bounce, like the impact, like pretty much when you're putting your foot down and like you're pushing off of it. So I did experience a lot better like run patterns in my opinion when I switched to the wides. And also to Roman's point where he couldn't feel like his like pinky toe and like his toes as much on like the calf raises. I purposely, like we talked about the breathing while running, where like you got to make sure you're inhaling, exhaling through the nose. You're paying attention to that, so you're like, you get like the best experience and also your best performance when it comes to running. But another thing we didn't talk about, which I thankfully saved until now maybe, or just forgot about it, I guess. I purposely like spread my toes while running, and I'll pretty much like remind myself, like, so if I feel like my toes are kind of like touching each other during a run, like I'll purposely like spread them as I'm running. So I could get better connection to the ground. I could get better connection to like the shoe and maximize performance with my running. Like obviously I'm not a long distance runner. I'm definitely never gonna do this probably a lot in the future. But back to Roman's point, like I want to add it on like the running side because I'm currently going through it right now. But yeah, I'm gonna stop talking here, Roman. I just wanted to add that in for like the display itself and how like I purposely do that while I'm running. It's not every like second I'm thinking of it, but it's like every like 5-10 minutes. It's like, hey, where are my toes at? And then like because it's sometimes I'm running for 1 hour plus pretty much. And so if you keep conscience of that, like a good conscience of that, like then like your rest of your day is going to be like that. Like even at night, I know I said I'm done, but even at night now, before like if we're like just hanging out, watching TV, reading our book or whatever, I purposely like spread my toes out while I'm hanging out, and I just leave them there. So I could I can make sure I'm getting that like exercise where I'm just like holding my toes out, and then like if I'm like reading or chilling or if I'm like on my phone, I'll purposely put my fingers through my toes and just like wiggle my foot clockwise, counterclockwise. And I think that's helped a lot with my recovery with running and like lifting, like because my feet don't hurt anymore really. Like I'll get like a blister here and there at running, and I did get like a little blister at 19 miles. But back to the original point was I'd rather have like a little blister, and Sam and I were talking about this yesterday. I'd rather have a little blister and no bone pain than bone pain and like no blisters.
Yeah.
So, and I think back to the point where it's like I was able to hit a leg day after running 10 miles yesterday. And I wore my barefoot shoes and I squatted on my barefoot shoes today, and my feet don't hurt at all. I don't have pain in my feet at all. I have like a little local soreness in my knees, but that's like a day or two and I'm done. But that's it. I'm done talking.
No, I love it. And the reason so like ingenious, they talk a little bit about it. If you all have watched The Last Dance, like a little about Michael Jordan, they talk about how like Michael was super smart when he was like he injured his foot, and the doctor said like, hey, you got to stay off it for a while. And what did he do? He couldn't stay off it. He's an absolute madman. But what did he do? He played the equivalent of a quarter at first, right? So he just little bit of stress, seeing how it is. Then a couple days goes by, or the next day, he's madman. He does a half of a game's worth of like time playing, but he's being smart. He's like slowly for him ramping up. Your feet have pretty poor vascularity, from what I understand. So the distribution of nutrients cannot necessarily be as large as the distribution of nutrients to your trunk, for example, because the vascularity is insane in your trunk. The vascularity, like in your arms, that's why like your arms can recover so quick, just based off of like the amount of arteries and veins and like the overall amount of space that those like your vascular system occupies in your arm compared to like your feet. Your feet is like the terminus, just like our hands. Our hands overall probably have better vascularity than
Speaking of like blood circulation and whatnot, and when I went to, I think I've told you this, but like back to your like for the blood circulation, like if you got like a good amount of like it's hair on your feet and your toes, that means you have some pretty darn good circulation. I know from experience, like my father has type 2 diabetes, and circulation seems like to kind of cut off like on your lower peripherals a lot more. So he doesn't really have a lot of hair on his feet or his like shins or his calves, and it's due to that vascularity issue like Roman was talking about. But back to the point, you keep going.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like other associations there, because diabetes is like it's an absolute scourge on health. That really sucks. But I guess I have a little bit of a challenge for Gainz Nation. After you listen to this podcast, or while you're listening to this podcast, I want you to put your hands on your feet, and I actually want you to start palpating your feet, meaning just touching your feet, especially on the outside of each of the feet. And I want you to feel where the pinky is, and I want you to feel when the pinky flexes, when you plantar flex the foot. I want you to feel that, and then I want to take your hand off, and then I want you to plantar flex the foot again, and I want you to feel it through the pinky toe. And I want you to start to develop a connection to that, because we want you to develop a connection to the ground. And then this can segue into different recommendations for shoe types, as you're referencing, Antoine. We don't necessarily recommend for leg day, for example, not as big of a different deal for like upper body type stuff, but for leg day in particular, why we don't recommend running shoes. So first, I want you to palpate the foot. So I did the right foot first, so I'm gonna switch to the left foot. We're just gonna touch it, put our hands all over our feet. So if you're not a foot person, wash your hands before, after, all that stuff. Touch that pinky toe. I want you to plantar flex, meaning point your toes down, dorsiflex, point the toes up, and I want you to connect to that pinky toe. I want you to put that foot back on the ground, and I just want you to be able to, you can sit, you can stand, whatever you're most comfortable with, and I want you to roll the pinky toe up. I want you to plantar flex it. Feel that connection to the ground, then splay the feet. If you can get some squats in, do some squats. And see and feel the difference as you're doing that, if you weren't able to do that beforehand. Yeah, I think that segues perfectly into Antonia. Talk a little bit about why we don't necessarily recommend wearing running shoes for leg day or lower body days.
Yeah, I think it's the proprioception when it comes to like the natural ability to be able to squat or deadlift when you're on the ground. So pretty much like if you think about it, why I told you guys like I don't wear my Hokas too much to the gym, because I was doing full body. So a lot of the times like I would be pretty much doing like movements like the squat, deadlift, even overhead press, where if I had, let's just say, I think the cushion on the Hokas that I have are probably like a good 1.5 inches or 2 inches like off the ground. So if I was able to get down to a squat, and pretty much what could happen is it's not giving me the great stability that like Roman was talking about, having natural stability within your feet. Because just like the bench, kind of like how you guys want, you know, you want your contact with the head, your traps and your butt, or your traps and your feet to the ground. You want to think of like the foot, where you want like the 3 points of your foot. You want like the left side touching the ground, the top right side, and your heel touching the ground. And you want to make sure you're able to connect to the ground, because the fact that you'll be able to have that stable base, right? And also you're pushing with your whole power of your foot, or your feet, I should say. And you're getting that stability to be able to push off the ground. If you don't have a stable ground, or your feet are not connected to the ground, let's just say for the squat, and you have like Hokas on, there's a potential chance where your foot could slip, your foot could move, your foot can pretty much balance off. So it could be like, it could kind of invert itself within the ankles, and that could really mess up and also could cause injury. So that's why I wouldn't suggest it, Roman. So if you want to keep going on that and talk more, if you want to add anything to that as well.
Yeah, a big thing that I want to focus on is like the collapsing of the arch of the foot. Whether you have flat feet or you have like a nice solid arch, your foot collapse in. So this is like, I'm drawing their body, this head, these are their arms, their legs. We don't want the foot to collapse in, right? What we want is that solid tripod. So when they come down, I'm actually twisting out my feet a little bit. I'm opening up my hips as I'm coming down into a squat, for example. So butt shooting back, knees are moving forward, the knees are rotating out slightly, and we're developing that tripod in the foot. So almost as if it's like you're grabbing the ground with your feet, right? So as opposed to collapsing in, we almost want to like shift the focus on them out. We don't want to be on the outside of the foot either. We want it to be balanced between the 3 points of contact, as Antoine mentioned. If this is the foot, 3 points of contact, right? But we want to be grabbing the ground with our feet, preventing that collapse of the foot, because when our feet collapse, what follows? The knees. Then we get knees knocking, and then we have a loss of power in the hips. So the hips are going to be your most powerful tool for building a strong squat. So this is how, from like a ground up approach, you can really harm the development of the strength of the squat. Now you still might be able to muscle that up, but are you going to be able to muscle up the maximum amount of weight? possibly no. There are some like notable exceptions. Miss Amanda Ann, I think is what her name is, on Instagram. She has actually quite a bit of I can't think of the term of it, so I'm just going to say a collapsing. But it appears like she has a collapsing of her knees. There's a very legitimate reason why that happens, and it has to do with the knee flexors in her adductors are very strong, and they activate quite powerfully when she comes up. But for the most part, we want to always practice good form, right? So she's one of those very few exceptions where that's the case. She's been doing this for years. She knows what she's doing. I wouldn't say that is what the average form should look like, though. She's totally an exception. So we want to be able to grab the feet or grab the ground with our feet and prevent the foot from collapsing. And one of the things that a running shoe is fantastic at doing is having like extra cushion, right? And it's going to be able to like reduce the blow. One of the reasons why Antoine was getting like a sensation of like bone bruising is, I believe, for the Velo Barefoot, they have a steel plate in them, don't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I never really thought about that because I was using the trail shoes too.
So I think they have a steel plate in them. So they're designed to be able to carry a certain load a certain way. But because the nature of running is very eccentric, that I believe that is possibly what was causing that like intense pressure towards like the top ball of his foot and causing that like sensation of bone bruising. Whether it was actually bone bruising or not, hard to say. Yeah. But that's like the sensation that Antoine was getting, right? Uncomfortable. It didn't like give him confidence that he like continue on along that route. So he devised a plan, he found a strategy, and it worked for him. So running shoes, fantastic for running, not super great for working out because the amount of cushion, it doesn't allow you to create the type of connection you want to have with the ground, have a stable base to go off of, and it allows for the potential to collapse the feet, and that can have downstream effects as we've already talked about.
The last, I know we ran out of time, but the last thing I want to mention, because people are going to be, I know if they made it to this end, they're going to be like, well, Roman and Antoine, they talked about squat shoes back in the day all the time. Like we've seen videos of Roman busting out those flashy white and black squat shoes. Antoine's got those flashy highlighter green Nikes. The only thing I want to say is, I know, Roman, I'm going to let you talk to as well, obviously, but Squat University, because they are narrow, I actually did this before I got rid of I didn't get rid of them, but not using my squat shoes anymore. But pretty much like he suggested, where instead of lacing your shoes and like making sure they're really tight by like the toe box, like pretty much you want to go ahead and like lace up from like the middle, or like kind of go like one or two holes back and start lacing from there. So like your shoe, if you don't have the ankle mobility, that's why a lot of the times people use squat shoes, and also like Olympic lifters. But if you don't have the ankle mobility and you want to like a nice deep squat, and you really want to go like ass to grass, but you can't with barefoot shoes, that's why you'd probably want to use squat shoes. But like if you lace them back, it'll kind of widen the toe box a little bit. I did try it. It does work a little bit. Obviously, they're a little bit more narrow, but I'm going to say, and I don't know if Roman you agree or not, but like keep using the squat shoe on squats only. Obviously, like bring another pair of shoes with you. A lot of the times I'll see people wear squat shoes throughout a whole lift. And I think it's kind of weird because like, you know, then they'll do like calf raises with them on, and then they'll do like hip thrust. And I think it's kind of like nonsense to like do that, in my opinion, unless you're like lazy. I've definitely done like RDLs with them, with the heels elevated, but like the walking in them are just not fun. Like I know, like after squatting, like I like try not to go to the bathroom at all, because they're just like, mine are heavy as hell. I know Roman's might be a little bit lighter, but like the Nike Romalos or whatever they're called, they're just extremely heavy, and I would suggest not to wear them after squatting. So Roman, I'm gonna let you talk, and then we'll just end it there.
Yeah, no. I used them for calf raises the other day. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm getting into leg pressing again. So I brought them, but I want to show a different shoe that I've used in the past. So these are Pumas that have let's see, yeah, well, you can see it. I'll go this way. So these are Pumas. So this is like a cloth here. Let's see if I can show what it looks like. I'll put my hand in them. So this is like a lot of room to like splay my toes. This is one of the like the shoes that kind of changed my perspective on having like a wider toe box, because it's a cloth fabric. It allows me to like splay my toes a little bit better. And as you can tell, let's see if you can tell with the profile, super flat heel. And it's a pretty.
Yeah, I mean the toes are a little bit elevated, but just by a little.
Yeah, it's not a zero drop by any means. Yeah. But these were great shoes for squatting. I had these for almost 4 years too. I think they might have cost $50 at DSW. Like I got a crazy deal for the squat shoes. I got them for $28. But I'll
yeah, don't be like me and spend like 180 on squat shoes. But thankfully they've been I've had them for like 7 years and they're still like in mint condition. So just don't spend $180 on them.
Yeah, and I have shoes that have wide toe boxes. I have shoes that have like tight toe boxes, narrow toe boxes. I think the direction for optimal health that I want to move in is probably a wider toe box, because it allows the continued development of the strength of the foot. And I think that the weakening of the foot and the downstream effects that can have can make people feel less comfortable, can make them feel less healthy. And if you feel like crap, what are the odds that you're going to go to the gym? So that's why I want, for my ask for Gainz Nation for this week, just please put your hands on your feet and do a little bit of like manual stimulation for your feet. I think you'll feel a whole lot better and be a whole lot motivated to get after your health goals.
Sweet. Well, you guys know where to find us. Go on our YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe to the Roman's YouTube page and my YouTube page. Go to our Instagram, comment there, ask us questions in our DMs. Let us know what we could, what do you want to see next. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.